Hello everybody and welcome to Always Online. My name is Brendan Lotz and joining me today is Louis Monzon.
Hey guys.
And Robin Lee Chetty.
Howdy.
So today for Always Online, the show where we discuss the discourse of the internet and what the internet is moaning about, we thought we'd tackle a rather divisive topic. And that is that wokeness is ruining video games. This is a subject that we've seen a lot online this year particularly, especially around Starfield, a game that was released by Bethesda, which is now owned by Microsoft. But it's not a new argument by any stretch of the imagination, really. It seems that since Anita Sarkeesian came out online with her documentary series on YouTube, since Gamergate was something that was happening online, there's been a discussion about whether video games have become too woke or too political or some sort of riff on that statement. And we wanted to discuss it today. And I think the first thing that we need to establish is a definition for what woke means. Because the term gets flung around a lot. I'm sure you guys have noticed this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
The term woke gets used for pretty much anything that, for the most part, right-wing folks disagree with. But when you ask them to define it, there's very few people who can define it. So we turned to the dictionary, and the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines woke as a US slang. It means aware of and acutely attentive to important societal facts and issues, especially issues of racial and social justice. So essentially, it really just means being aware and cognizant of things that are happening around you and what people there are around you and how the history of people can kind of be weaponized against them in a lot of respects.
So it's as opposed to being like asleep, right?
Yes.
You are awake to all the wrongs of society and all the ills in society. You know?
So I think the original, now I'm just working off of memory here, but I think the first time that this term was used was during the American Civil Rights Movement, with like the Black Panthers and those sorts of organizations, where it was to be awake, to understand that the things that are happening around you could be influenced by racism or prejudice or whatever it may be. So that's where, in my understanding, the term comes from, is being aware of what is happening around you, that just because you're included in society doesn't mean that you are a part of that society, right. Which I think a lot of African Americans felt during that civil rights movement. So yeah, I think that's, as you say, Louis, it means to be awake rather than being asleep and being ignorant, as it were, to the challenges that folks face. But like I said, it's become a sort of token phrase that is used by, some people that just don't like others being included in their special thing, right? So I think let's talk about wokeism in the modern era, right? So is it a problem? Are we seeing traditional media become more woke, as it were?
I think it's you don't want to be like, yes, it's definitely become more woke, because then you're kind of playing into the whole narrative that woke is bad, and because definitely there has been a sustained drive to increase diversity in the media, right?
Yeah.
More representation of different races, of different sexual orientations, of different, basically more differences, right?
Yeah.
And we know that companies like Netflix and stuff have certain quotas they have to reach with every episode or every film they do. There has to be a certain amount of different representation of different races and different cultures. And maybe from there we kind of see this growing and increasing to other companies doing the same. Different films, different series, But does this make it more woke? according to the definition of wokeness.
I mean, is being woke necessarily a bad thing? Is having a all-female cast of Ghostbusters necessarily a bad thing?
I would argue not that all-female reboot is a bad thing, but I think that the word has now mutated into something negative.
Yes, I agree.
And kind of to Louis' point, I think it's a bit of both, yes and no. I think there is a growing awareness that representation and diversity and kind of portraying characters on screen, whether it be via a film, TV series, or on a video game, needs to represent a larger spectrum of society. However, and I'm sure we'll probably delve into this a bit more, I feel like a lot of companies are using it to pander in a way that gives these kind of, I guess, anti-woke people or communities more firepower.
Yeah.
It doesn't push the conversation forward. If anything, it just stunts it, in my view.
So I think the problem comes in is when you sacrificing quality in the respect of being more diverse, right? Is like if we use the Ghostbusters reboot, the all-female cast, I think everybody can agree that was not a very good movie.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it was because it was an all-female cast. I think it was just a bad movie because it was a bad movie.
Yeah.
You could use like Ocean's 8, for example, as well.
Yeah.
For me, that movie didn't stick because the great thing about Ocean's 11, whether you like the films or not, is that there's a fantastic rapport amongst all the characters.
Yeah.
Ocean's 8 to me didn't deliver on that front, regardless of whether it's a good crime caper, a good thievery film, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
The core tenet of the film is the fact that those 11 dudes just have a great rapport with each other, and it's great to watch on screen. Unfortunately, Ocean's 8 didn't do that.
Yeah, and I mean, you can also go through all the other Ocean's films, and you could say that they just weren't good, like Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13. I mean, they were just riffing off of the same thing, and eventually that became boring.
And Ocean's 8 is the same. It has the same problem. Because I felt that when I was watching Ocean's 8, that it wasn't so much that they were trying to do something new and interesting, is that they were just translating the characters. Now they're women.
Yeah, because the problem is that the badness of the film gets conflated with the fact that it's an all-female cast.
Yeah.
It must be bad because it's all-female cast. That's not
That's not the case
it
at all.
It was poorly written, and the performances weren't up to snuff and weren't really up to the standard that we expected in Ocean's 11.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, if we turn this around and look at some good-ish movies that are divisive, and I think that we look at the Marvel slate here. So when we look at, like, Black Panther, right? So that was, by all definitions, a woke movie, but it was incredibly culturally significant. And I think that the effects of that movie are now starting to be felt, not in the sense of the films and stuff, but the kids who grew up when that movie was coming out. For me, from what I've seen online about Black Panther since its release, it was a really important movie to give like black kids a way to go, hey, that I could be that. I could be Chadwick Boseman, right? I could be the Black Panther. Gives them that aspirational thing. Like with Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, all of these movies where Miles is the main character. Like, I think that's so important to showcase this because it gives young kids the idea of, hey, that could be me. I could be that person. And I know it's silly to say, oh, well, kids can't be Spider-Man. But when I was a kid growing up, I was able to look at like X-Men and go, I could be Wolverine while playing around with my friends, right? And stuff like that is so important because it breeds your imagination. It grows you as a person. It gives you confidence. Like a lot of superhero stuff, that's the moral of the story, right? Is confidence. Be yourself. Be brave. Be daring. All these things. And I think that being able to have characters that you can relate to is such an important thing. And that it's great in movies, but I think it's even more important in video games where you are in control of a character, where often you are playing a character of your own creation. And if I can't play as myself in these video games or the person I want to play as, I'm very unlikely to play the video game again.
So just to go back to your point you're making, Brendan, Black Panther and I think Spider-Man, the Marvel, these Marvel classics are a great example of the problem that we're talking about, the pandering, right?
Yeah.
So when Stan Lee and Jack Kirby kind of made Black Panther, the whole point of it, and also like the X-Men, they didn't make it obviously they were told by their editors, whoever, they needed to have certain superheroes to kind of go towards certain racial demographics.
Yeah.
But they kind of inserted in these works their own opinions on certain things. Like Black Panther is all about Africa being exploited by overseas powers, right?
Yeah.
X-Men is all about race relations.
Yeah.
These are important topics that weren't really being discussed at the time, but these authors kind of inputted that into these things, and they included these different minority characters, not because they kind of wanted to pander, even though the original impetus was they wanted to sell comics, but because they had something to say, right?
Yeah.
So I think the problem here is diversity for diversity's sake.
Yeah.
Might be an issue.
Yeah, I think anybody would argue that just having diversity for the sake of diversity is not going to result in a good product, right? Whether that's a video game, a movie, a book, whatever, it's just going to fall flat because the focus is not on producing quality content, right?
And it's not about the message you want to say. What are you trying to get out of this?
Yeah.
It's about, I just want there to be more of a certain race because it'll make me look better.
Yeah.
It'll make people less angry at me. That's not a reason to be producing art, right?
Exactly. So I think we can now move on to video games, which is basically the core of this. And in recent memory, there have been a couple of games that I think could be classified as woke. That includes The Last of Us Part 2, also technically The Last of Us Part 1, Baldur's Gate 3, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and potentially the most divisive one this year, Starfield. Now, Starfield was slammed by some pundits.
Weirdly, it got so much attention.
Yeah, because you could choose they, them pronouns. I've not played Starfield because the install size is ridiculous. But I haven't played it, and from what I've seen, there's not much reference to the pronouns that you choose. Like now and then somebody will reference they or them or he or she. But I don't really know how often the idea of your pronouns comes up in Starfield. Regardless, though, does it really matter? Do pronouns in a video game? I don't really pay attention to that sort of stuff.
I think the problem with Starfield, basically, I don't know why it was jumped on so much by pundits and, because there are examples of more quote-unquote wokeness in other games this year,
Well, I think it's because it was Xbox's biggest game of the year.
Yeah.
A game a decade in the making, and that's my issues around Starfield are nothing to do with the wokeness or the kind of woke outrage that resulted in it. To me, it just didn't feel like a 2023 game.
Yeah.
I think the bar over the past couple of years has been set pretty high as far as AAA titles are
Even
concerned.
just this year.
Yeah, and it, to my mind at least, it fell quite short of that. But the whole issue around pronouns, these are role-playing games. The great thing about a game is the fact that you're able to create your character, you're able to inhabit this world that is not the real world.
Yeah.
Why is this an issue? It boggles the mind.
So I think the issues that the features that a lot of people kind of deem are woke come when it's related to character creation, which we saw in Starfield with the pronouns, and then opinions within the game. But I mean, so if we look at the character creation side of things, right? So Cyberpunk, Baldur's Gate 3, Starfield, Elden Ring, like a lot of these games allow you to create your character. But in recent years, I've noticed that a lot of games have dropped the male-female moniker, and it's now body type A, body type B.
Right, it's like in Elden Ring.
Yeah, in Elden Ring, and no matter which like sex or gender you select, it generally has no bearing on the game.
Yeah.
I know in Destiny, for instance, you can have a male or it's a masculine or feminine body type, and it has no bearing on the game whatsoever. Your hitbox is the same whether you're masculine or feminine. doesn't matter. The same is in Elden Ring. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? Cyberpunk as well. Baldur's Gate 3.
It's just the voice is different.
Exactly.
The options, the dialogues are all the same.
But even then, in Cyberpunk, for instance, right, you can have a feminine presenting body with male genitals, with a male voice or a female voice. And like, then you start to wonder, like, okay, but where's the outrage against Cyberpunk? I know that Cyberpunk had a lot of outrage because of technical issues at launch.
Not so much the pronoun stuff.
But now we're in an era, nowadays, this year, we had Phantom Liberty release, and the game is technically better in terms of a technical standpoint, I mean. But where was the outrage with the character creation there?
That's again to the weird stuff happening around Starfield. Baldur's Gate 3 came out a month before Starfield. And the whole thing about Baldur's Gate 3 is just the insane amount of customization that you can do.
Yeah.
You can be whoever you want, right?
Yeah.
And the developers kind of really lean into that. So you can choose, like Cyberpunk, you can choose any body type, any voice. You can actually set the way that other characters will perceive you or give you your pronouns. So he, him, there's a non-binary option as well that they'll use they, them. And for some reason, it flew under the radar. And Starfield was what they picked on, even though Starfield had the least amount of, in Starfield
I think it was also because of the hype. I think there was a lot of hype around Starfield, and it was divisive because it was an Xbox exclusive, blah, blah, blah. Whereas Baldur's Gate, I think, obviously, it was something that was on your radar because you played it and you reviewed it for us. But I don't think a lot of people paid it as much attention, especially in the build-up to its launch.
So it was just about popularity, right?
I think so.
The biggest thing gets the biggest reactions.
Yeah. I genuinely think that's what the case was.
But then the problem isn't the So what is the initial problem with the wokeness? Why is it wrong that you can choose the genitalia of your character?
I think the issue is like we mentioned earlier, where diversity is made the core focus of a piece of media, where we want to have the most inclusive game ever. Like, that is a bad reason to make a video game, in my opinion, just to be diverse, right? Or to be diverse in your character selection. Like, that's a bad reason to make a video game. But if you're making a video game, and while you're making that video game, you go, hell, I don't really want to play. Or during testing, somebody's like, I don't really want to play as a male, right? Oh, well, then maybe we should have the option of a female. So in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I remember the build-up to that game, people were livid at the idea that you could play as a woman, Cassandra. And once the game launched, I played with both characters it launched. I can't even remember the male guy's name. Can anybody?
Cause something?
Alexander.
Alexander? I don't think it was.
Oh.
I know that throughout the game you refer to him as Deimos, or somebody refers to him as Deimos, but I don't believe that's his name. But so here's the issue, right? Is that when I played that game, I played as the male, and it was meh. But Cassandra, that voice actress, knocked it out of the park. It was entertaining, it was believable, convincing, wasn't jilted content or conversation. It was really, really good. And I think a lot of people had to kind of eat their words, going, well, the option doesn't really change the story all that much. This character kind of worked. And Ubisoft did it again with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. There, you played a character with the same name, whether you're a man or woman. And once again, it seemed to have worked. I personally didn't like playing as the woman this time around, just because I didn't like the voice actress's portrayal of the role. Yeah. But it didn't really matter to me, because the story and the gameplay at the end of the day was exactly the same, right? So I feel a lot of people react to the stuff before they've even had a chance to get the game in their hands. So like with Starfield, I wonder how many people reacted to this content, this news that there was the ability to have they, them pronouns without ever having played the game. And labeling Bethesda, the company behind Fallout 76 and Horse Armor in Skyrim, as woke. Which is just to me do you hear yourself, right? Like, a lot of the times these people accuse companies who would not in any day of the week be classified as woke under the definition that we read earlier as being woke.
Yeah, it's not like Bethesda's trying to make any super massive points about social justice and stuff like that in Starfield.
No.
In the first 10 minutes of the game, in the character creation, they include one option, and all of a sudden everyone jumps on them, right? They get piled on.
Yeah.
I think that kind of is emblematic of the reactionary kind of nature of this whole argument.
Yeah.
Like, it makes people upset for the sake of being upset. Like, there's not really a problem there. It's kind of like, trying to farm engagement by promoting these kind of hateful,
I mean, it feels to me like a dog whistle, right? It's sort of like I am upset that there are other people in this video game, or that other people who are not me are going to get to enjoy this video game. And I don't want to say that I'm a racist, or that I'm a bigot, or that I'm anti-LGBTQ, or anti-trans, or whatever it may be. I don't want to say that out loud, so I'm just going to say that I don't like diversity in my video games. To me, that's what it feels like a lot of the time, is it's just a dog whistle to let other people who are racist, bigots, whatever, let them know that, hey, this is a game that you should avoid because it's woke.
But is Starfield woke? Because you can choose they, them, and you can choose other pronouns as well, correct?
Yeah.
So then don't choose they, them.
I mean,
choose whatever pronouns you want.
This is the other thing, right? Is that a lot of the discourse around video games being woke is based on things that are a player choice, right? It's not like for instance, with Cyberpunk, right? In Cyberpunk, whether you play as male or female gender, you can romance somebody of the opposite sex or somebody of the same sex.
Yeah.
And that is an active decision that you have to make. They're not just going to come at you and be like, oh, hey, let's make out. That's not how this works. There are active choices that you have to make, very tough choices, CD Projekt Red. Just make them a bit more less convoluted, please. But these are active choices you have to make in a game. It's not something that's just there, like
you're forced into.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I'm sure you'll encounter a gay character, or a black character, or a trans character, but those are just characters.
They're real people in the real world who are these things, right?
Who you are walking past in the mall every day.
Yeah, that might be the problem. Like you said, it's a dog whistle, right? They don't want to be walking past these people.
Yeah.
Like in Baldur's Gate 3, we mentioned that it's so that you can really do whatever you want. You can choose whatever character. The devs made it so that you can romance any of the characters, no matter what your gender or
That's great.
So who cares? It was whatever. It's open season in the Forgotten Realms, right? But you can also play as a white knight guy who only romances the female characters. You can also do that. There's nothing stopping you,
Which is just like, it's more like, to me, it feels a lot of the time that arguments about games being too woke are, this is my hobby and nobody else is allowed to be participating in it. That's what it feels like to me. It's just, it boils down to selfishness and greed a little bit. I want to just shift a little bit to something that's rather disturbing. Louis, you brought this up, which is the algorithm that Activision Blizzard has.
So this is very strange, and it goes to the pandering thing, the diversity for diversity's sake. And as Robin mentioned, it doesn't kind of solve the problem. It kind of makes it worse in a way. So Activision Blizzard announced this is their own. So they made the announcement by themselves, and they kind of showed everyone off what this algorithm is, this system that they have. So they have a tool when in the development phase, when they're creating characters for games like Overwatch and for Call of Duty, they have a tool in which they kind of codify how diverse a character is, like how ethnic a character is.
Why do I have a feeling when they're choosing the bad guys, they're very ethnic?
So
Call of Duty.
What's weird about this is that they've kind of put certain labels on certain things that can make you ethnic, quote unquote. Like race is one of the labels. Whether they have disabilities or not. Evil, good or evil, moral choice is a kind of a thing that makes you more ethnic or the other. So culture. So the problem with this is kind of, it makes it like a hetnicity Olympics, right? So the basic, most unethnic character, according to this system, is a cis hetero white male. So a white male who's heterosexual, is born that way. That is the most unethnic person in the world, according to Activision Blizzard, right? And then you kind of start adding things that make them more ethnic. Like you add race. Are they black? Are they Asian? Are they Native American? So what's more ethnic, black or Native American, right?
Oh, gosh.
So
Well, I would argue that the original man was not white. So actually, the whole starting point is wrong.
but the problem here is and Blizzard says, or the Activision said, this is a way to kind of eliminate their own biases in the creation process, right? And it's kind of a way to address, the problems that Activision Blizzard has, the harassment allegations, the culture of work hostility with women developers,
frat boy club.
Frat
boy culture,
the bigotry that they have inside in the internal teams and stuff. This is a way to kind of show, actually, no, we can make diverse characters. We can make also, we're with you guys, we're allies. But what it doesn't, and this is what a lot of kind of media and people, and when this information came out, people were like reacting negatively to them. This is just a kind of a showmanship. It's not real. What they should have done, instead of making this, ethnicity Olympic system, is hire actual diverse people in your team.
I was just about to say this.
Right?
So I went to a conference many years ago here in Johannesburg, and somebody said to me, or the speaker there said, okay, I have R1 million to give away, and you need to make it as simple as possible for people to win this R1 million. How would you do it? So this person said, what you could do is you could start up a website, and you could put a red button that says, click the red button to win R1 million. And the first person to click that button gets to win R1 million, right? And that's fair because anybody can go online and click the button. And then the person started breaking down how misguided that thinking is. So you're assuming that everybody has an internet connection, which they don't. You're assuming that everybody understands what the color red is, which they don't. You're assuming that everybody knows what the word click means. You're assuming that you know how many people understand what R1 million is. You're assuming that people can read English. Like, there's all these things that they started to break down, which to my mind, it stuck with me because it's largely the way that I used to think, was that everyone understands how to do this. It's called the curse of knowledge. You can read up about this. But essentially, it showcased to me how diversity actually works, is that no person can understand every facet of the way that the world works, right? I don't understand Louis' point of view 100%. Well, I understand a lot of what you're saying, but I don't know your background.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know Robin's background, so I can't say that I can speak for them when it comes to certain things, right? I can only speak for myself. And when you have a diverse team, you just are literally opening that up to more people. Right. You're getting more points of view, so that when you're developing something, somebody who is maybe from a disadvantaged background can say, oh, well, maybe people won't really understand this, so we need to provide more context. Or, this doesn't really work. It's not really inclusive language. Or the way that we're developing this is not inclusive to more people. And by gosh, I can't believe I have to say this, but video game developers and people who are producing media, their end goal is to make money. Right. And the best way to make money is to cater to the widest audience possible. Catering to a small group of people doesn't work. You're making yourself niche at this point. All of these companies want to make money, and unfortunately, we now live in a world where there are more people than ever online from a variety of backgrounds. Or unfortunately for people who dislike wokeism, we now live in a really awake society where people are aware that it's not just them that is in this world, that it's not just their beliefs that matter, it's everybody's beliefs. And sometimes that requires making concessions and making compromises. I don't think that the way Blizzard is approaching this is a good idea, because putting a weight, how do you determine the weight of somebody's ethnicity?
So, I think according to the system, I forgot the name of the character now. It's
Anna.
Anna's one. It's very ethnic, but the most ethnic character is the Symmetra.
Okay.
Because she's a person of color. She's Indian. She has a mental. She's neurodivergent.
Yeah.
Because she has autism, I believe.
Yeah.
She also is under the disability category because she
Yeah.
has a robot arm.
Okay.
So she is the most diverse out of because she hits all the little
Sorry, I just need to just back it up a moment. The character has autism.
Yes.
How have they built that into the character?
So I think it's just like
I think it's a law tab.
Yeah, it's
a line in
like it's
the law.
like J.K. Rowling saying that Dumbledore is gay retroactively.
Yeah, or
you
that
know?
Hermione
So-
was actually black.
So, unfortunately, I have to play a bit of devil's advocate here. To me, that is wokeism gone rogue, gone terribly.
Right.
It makes no sense.
So I disagree because I think that in a game like Overwatch, where there's like backstory and lore and that sort of thing, like maybe in the moment-to-moment gameplay in the game, it doesn't matter. But if they were to turn this into a book or a series or something like that, I think a detail like that does matter because it influences the character, right? Being sorry, what did you say? Symmetra.
Symmetry, yeah.
Symmetra, like if she is autistic, like that could play into certain things in a series or movie or another piece of media. To me, it's just a piece of law, right? I don't think it's woke or anything. I think it's just a piece of law. They were like, hey, we're writing this character. Maybe she's on the spectrum, right? Like, I don't know if that's not what Blizzard did, then I will stand corrected and say, well, damn, Blizzard, you went too far.
Yeah.
But to me, it doesn't really matter. It's just a piece of lore, right? It's like in Dota 2, like some of the characters have lore that doesn't make sense with the wider gamut of the game. But does it really matter at the end of the day when it's just a line?
So that's what I would argue. It doesn't matter. So why add it?
So that's my problem.
It just seems like you are adding things to tick boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've met our woke quota for the game. We can now
We can
publish
make
again.
another white dude.
Yes, I don't know. It's
That's exactly what I was going to say.
so. Unfortunately, to the anti-woke people's point, that seems like a unnecessary use of I guess wokeness.
Okay, but then are you going to boycott the whole game and call Activision Blizzard woke?
No, I won't do that. But for me, it's just giving them more ammunition, in my view.
Absolutely, but maybe that's also just the developers like, let's pee these people off.
So what was interesting is that actually, like a lot of people on social media, especially like people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, people who are actually neurodivergent, people who actually have disabilities, people who are black people, they were saying that this system is a problem, is an issue.
Yeah.
Because like Robin said, it exists to just tick boxes.
Yeah.
It's not actually trying to address any societal issues or say anything of value, or it's just a means to an end that they have to hit these quotas, and that's about it.
I mean, so if we look at like a game, Life is Strange, right? I would argue that that's potentially the most woke game in existence.
I think I agree with you.
Because it touches on a whole bunch of different issues. And I think it's like a walking simulator type game where there's some puzzles and stuff to do, but it's not like you are kicking heads of aliens. And that game, I've never played Life is Strange, but I've heard good things from people that are a fan. I've heard from a lot of people in the LGBTQ community that it was a really important game for them, the series. And while I will never play that game, I'm very happy that that game exists for those people. Just the same as I might not be the biggest fan of Black Panther, but I mean, have at it. Go and watch the movie. Enjoy the character, right? As a white male, I have no shortage of media that caters to me, right? So for me, looking at things that expands that and potentially gives me other viewpoints or points of view, I love that. Like my father used to say to me, if you don't learn something new every day, it's a day ruined. And being in a society where we are more diverse, I think is just so nice to be able to learn something new about people every day and learn about the weirdness of this world that we live in. Hell, we're on a rock hurtling through space. Like, we are a cosmic anomaly, and we want to complain about how people are choosing or how the people are naming themselves? Come on, guys. Come on. There's more important stuff to worry about. Like the fact that we chose to pay taxes instead of just living and chilling. So, something else I wanted to touch on. So we've spoken about how a lot of the times companies are just ticking boxes, and that often ruins games. But I want to talk now to what is actually ruining gaming. And I think that all of us can agree that it's not about the character that's in there, whatever. It's more about things like microtransactions, right? BlizzCon was this weekend, and Blizzard announced the next expansion for World of Warcraft.
Yes.
And one of the pre-order perks is being able to play World of Warcraft. I think it's 3 days early, the expansion, before it's available to everyone else. And I'm sorry, but that is disgusting.
Yeah.
That is a disgusting, disgusting thing for a live service game, an MMO like World of Warcraft. Because the people who are committed to that game are going to buy that because they want to be able to keep up with their clanmates. They want to be able to play the content when it's out without it being spoiled. And that has become an alarming trend in the world of video games. We saw it with Diablo 4. We've seen it now with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 remake, whatever it's called.
EA Sports FC24.
Mortal Kombat 1 did the same thing.
Yeah, we're seeing this trend where game developers are now saying, well, you want to play it early, you got to pay us extra. The game is ready, right? The game is ready to go. You are now getting in early on the front door, and it builds hype. I can't deny that. When I saw everybody playing Diablo 4 before release, because they had pre-ordered the game, I was tempted. I was incredibly tempted to pre-order the game. And companies do play on this. They play on the FOMO of people, the fear of missing out. But it goes beyond that. Things like Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat 1.
So the problem with Day 1 DLC. Day 1 DLC, I think, is the kind of... So before the whole... buy the special edition to play the game before everyone else, the Day 1 DLC is kind of the beginning of that. Because it means that they have content that is ready. It works in the game. It adds to the game. It's a character like Shang Tsung. It's there. It's always meant to be there.
But they cut it out.
But they cut it out just as the game is releasing because they want you to pay for it. They want you to pay a little bit extra. They want more money out of you, right?
They want that you have the exclusive character.
Right? But it's like, no, you can just give it to me. I'm paying full price for a game. Why can't you give me the other character, you know? So it's predatory in a sense, right? It's just a way to squeeze more money out of the buyer.
Yeah. I mean, then you have things like Fortnite, right? Or these live service games. Destiny is responsible for it as well, Diablo 4, where you have seasonal content that demands you either pay in real world currency or you use real world currency to buy like silver or gems or whatever it may be, that kind of forces you to spend more than you would have liked to in order to get access to this DLC content, these microtransactions. And I mean, that's just predatory. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
Like there's this, once again, this preying on the fear of missing out. Oh, I'm not going to be able to look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson if I don't spend V-Bucks on the skin, right? Or in Roblox or Genshin Impact or whatever it may be. There's just these predatory practices, and it's not getting any better. In fact, it's bleeding its way into more and more video games. Like just thinking back to Cyberpunk, right? You had pre-order bonuses where you got some free stuff that didn't really matter. And to my mind, a lot of the stuff that comes with these pre-order bonuses are pointless, and you never end up using them in the game. I think it was The Witcher 3 came with a whole bunch of pre-order stuff. I've never used it because within 5 minutes of playing the game, any gear you find is better than that. So it's like you say, Lou, it's stuff that's in the game that's there that they just cut out and try and sell to you.
So I'll give an example of when this is okay. For example, if you sell the game with all the content and everything's nice there, and then you have like a special edition or a collector's edition that has maybe an art book or things like that. Yeah, that's like it doesn't make any changes to the game, but if someone is a big fan of the series or something like that, or enjoys the universe, they can kind of get. They can pay a little bit extra for some cool extra stuff.
Behind the scenes or whatever it may be.
That's fine. I think that's fine. I don't think that that it's a choice, right? For the player.
Yeah, absolutely.
That doesn't necessarily make it so they need the V-Bucks for this or it's kind of like an extra, right?
But I mean, the other side of this as well is that it makes buying a video game a confusing undertaking, right? Like, which version of the game do I buy so that I can get the most bang for my buck without overspending, right? Like, how do I do this? And then you tell people, oh, you should buy this game, and then how do they buy it? Because there's 50 different versions of the game. This has improved over years, but it is starting to, I've noticed at least, more and more versions of video games being sold.
Yeah, but people abuse that system. Like Warner Brothers with Mortal Kombat have 8 different editions. Each edition has for the most expensive one lets you play early and gives you Shang Tsung and gives you this and gives it just becomes untenable, right?
But then also, another thing that's ruining video games is the creation of these massive corporations. So we've just seen that Microsoft has now officially acquired Activision Blizzard, creating a megazord of video games, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's kind of disturbing. It's kind of worrying to me to see this huge corporation that now controls not only like a large portion of the PC gaming market, but also some of the mobile market, some of the console market. Like, this is alarming, and especially with Activision Blizzard's track record, it's even more alarming.
Yeah.
Microsoft has a history of laying off employees. How many did they lay off earlier this year? Like 100,000? Was that Meta?
That was one of them.
One of them. But this is the problem, is that we have these huge faceless organizations. No, we still know who you are, Bobby Kotick, don't worry. That are really ruining the lives of their developers. Bungie just recently, last week, fired 8% of its staff, which thankfully its community within Destiny 2 has kind of kicked back at them, going, well, this is some BS.
Right.
But these are things that are happening throughout the industry. Ubisoft has laid people off. Yeah. You have massive corporations buying up these video game developers and then shuttering the studio because they're not as profitable as they thought they would be.
The most infamous example being EA.
Yeah.
Which when EA started getting really big, they started buying a lot of studios, smaller studios, and then they started closing them, killing franchises. If you want an emblematic look at what's a real problem in gaming, that's one of them. These companies laying off people, people's livelihoods being ruined. Really cool and interesting games that you'll no longer be able to get the sequel, or because EA was like, nah, whatever.
Yeah. Like Respawn, when they acquired Respawn. I think a lot of what's happened at Respawn is a result of the gaming community kind of kicking back at EA and saying, no, give us Titanfall. Yeah. Give us Titanfall 2. Give us something else within this universe. And that's great, but it also just showcases to me that the idea that games are too woke or too inclusive is a nothing statement, because that's not really the issue. I mean, I think something that everybody can agree on is the stories of crunch at studios. We're expecting a GTA 6 trailer this week, or announcement?
Trailer next month, some kind of detailed announcement this week.
Yeah, so, I mean, Rockstar is well known for crunch with GTA 5 and most of its other titles.
Yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's not good. And I don't think anybody would argue that Rockstar is too woke, even though in the last game you played as a black man, a white man, or I suppose he's Italian-American. And what was Trevor?
Trevor was Trevor.
Trevor. So you played as a black man, an Italian-American, and Trevor. And I don't think anybody would argue that Rockstar is too woke.
I mean, that's if you don't understand what Rockstar is trying to do. I mean, GTA is famous for being satirical. You know? So they put in the little wokeness things in there, and that's not really the problem. The problem is crunching employees to death.
Yeah. And is that real? Is diversity the problem when we have people in the real world that are afraid to go to work or afraid to speak up at work because they're going to lose their jobs? These are the things that are really killing video games.
But these are the things that are not, Where was this? Where was the outcry for this? You know, when Cyberpunk, when allegations came out, the CD Projekt was crunching its employees to death into the little dust pile.
There wasn't. There was just, oh, no wonder it was so bad.
But meanwhile, Starfield has one option in the first 10 minutes, and all of a sudden the internet breaks because of it. You know?
Yeah, but no, that's not. Those aren't the issues. The real issues just aren't. And it does make me wonder, and I'm putting on my tinfoil hat here, whether this discourse about games being woke is just something that's fueled by video game companies who want their competition to not succeed. And I know that sounds like such a reach, but when you have companies like Cambridge Analytica who are on video saying that they can influence elections, who's to say that private companies aren't doing that against their competition when the margins are so small when it comes to video games? When, like, Starfield is the first Xbox exclusive since Halo, really. I mean, I suppose Gears of War we could count as well. But it's a very rare Xbox exclusive, and it just gets slammed for they, them pronouns? Huh? Come on, guys. No, this is ridiculous. Something else I want to talk about is how hard it is to actually be anti-woke, right? So I found this website. It's called Cancel This Company, and they have a list of woke and unwoke companies. I just want to give you an idea of what these folks classify as woke companies.
So I just want to add here, the implication is that you shouldn't buy from the woke companies. You shouldn't support
you shouldn't support them because they support Black Lives Matter, they support LGBTQ rights.
Monsters.
Yeah. So if you look at some of them, like Dell, HP, Amazon, Cisco, Citrix, like all of these companies basically run the internet.
Yes.
Google, Microsoft, all of these companies are determined to be woke because they've donated to democratic parties. And I want to touch on that in a little bit as well. But it becomes nearly impossible to live your life if you want to avoid wokeness, as it were. Because unfortunately, the definition of woke is quite broad, right? And because it is quite broad, you can classify anything in there. If a game, for instance, has a female lead, that's woke. If it has a female doing a job, that's woke. If it has a LGBTQ person in it, that's woke. So it becomes very hard to live your life when your definition of things is, oh, well, I don't want to support woke or unwoke companies, whatever it may be. So yeah, I think it becomes very difficult to just live your life when your whole issue is, I don't like diversity in the thing that I enjoy.
Yeah.
It just becomes so hard.
And I think maybe that's kind of not defeating, but like it makes you even angrier. If you're one of these people that resists this at the highest extent, that you would go out of your way to make a website to say which companies are woke and which are not woke, to spend the time, you pay the server. I mean, that's some crazy stuff right there, right?
Yeah.
If you're one of these people and you just look around you and the walls are woke, and you know everything is woke, it makes you angry, right, inside your heart
all the time.
You know, and I think that makes this behavior even worse, in my opinion, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it becomes so hard to live your life when you are walking around just looking for reasons to not like things, like to hate on a video game because there's a they-them option.
A choice
that you don't need to make. Once again, it's a choice that you don't need to make. And to just build off of this a little bit more, when you say that something is woke, you kind of just, like I said, you are dog whistling to everyone, saying, well, you know, I don't like X, Y, Z in this, and I'm too afraid to say it. Just own it. If you're a racist or a bigot, own it. Own that stuff, right? Don't try and hide behind, this is what, because it means nothing. Just say, I'm a racist and I don't like having people of color in my video games. Then we can all just move on, because then we don't need to try and get you to admit that. You just admit it yourself.
And we don't have to care about you. Right?
Exactly. We can just carry on. We can live our lives. And yeah, I just think it's a very silly argument to be making that wokeism is ruining video games. It isn't. There are other pressing issues that are ruining video games. Whether it's the frat boy culture at Activision Blizzard, whether it's microtransactions in video games, whether it's gacha style games that just ask you endlessly for money, or games that use dark design to get you to click on things that you might not want to be clicking on, or make purchases that you might not want to purchase. Those are the real things that we should be fighting against. Employee abuse by huge corporations, CEOs taking home 100 times what the lowest ranking employee makes. Those are things that we should be fighting, but instead...
Thank you, McKinsey, for doing that.
But, I mean, instead we're focused on they, them pronouns. Guys, no. Yeah. And honestly, if you just play the game and you encounter somebody who's a little bit different to you, you might learn something. You might form a bond with that character. You might enjoy it. You are limiting yourself by saying, I don't like this in my video games. Don't be so silly. Come on, get some help. Stop it. In the words of Michael Jordan. Right. I think that's going to wrap it up from us. Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Always Online. If you disagree with everything we said, too bad, you can't comment, because we have the microphones here. Just open your mind a little bit, in my opinion. Seriously, just open your mind a little bit.
Games are fantasy.
Yeah.
It's fantasy. And if you don't like it, you make your opinion by your money.
Yeah.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Don't buy it then. That's how you make your choice.
But how am I going to know if a game has been a pre-order? Well, don't pre-order. There we go. We just solved one of the biggest issues.
Don't pre-order.
Don't pre-order games anymore. Wait until the woke mainstream media reviews the game and tells you that there are they, them pronouns in the character creator. Then you don't have to buy the game at all.
I would say wait for reviews, but even reviews are divisive because I think they're all published by woke publications.
Yeah, and we're all paid by George Soros.
I
wish I was paid.
I'm still waiting for, George, if you're listening, I'm waiting for my check. Please.
Mr. Soros, I'll also take a cut of that as well, please.
Yeah. Come on, share the love, bro.
Hook us up with that woke cash, man.
Yeah, we want some of that.
I haven't seen a single woke cent, I'm telling you.
For legal reasons, this is a joke, all right? This is a joke. We are not paid by George Soros. We wish we were, but we are not. So, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Always Online. From myself, Brendan Lotz, cheerio. From Louis Monzon.
Go woke, go broke.
And from Robin Lee Chetty.
Take care, everyone.
Cheers.